to answer all your queries. Kunal Saraugi of Equity Rush and Mayuresh Joshi of Angel Broking. Afternoon, gentlemen. Thanks as always for joining in. Our first caller is on State Bank of India. It's Priya Shrikant. Hi, Priya.
Hi, hello.
Hi, how can we help you?
Yeah, I invest some money in stock market. I have been doing it for last 6 years.
Okay.
Yeah, my query is about SBI Bank. Yeah, so is it a good time to enter into SBI now?
And Priya, can you stay invested for the longer term, or do you want it for a 1 year, 6 months?
Yeah, I'm a long-term investor. About 2 to 3 years I will wait.
Okay, Mayuresh, would you recommend buying State Bank of India at the current level of 308 if Priya has a time horizon of 2 to 3 years?
After Rima, absolutely. I think if the time horizon is 2 to 3 years that the investor is willing to look at, I think SBI is a good bet from the PSU space. The numbers in the results gone by indicate that the asset quality pressures that the bank was probably expected to receive has not come out. So I think the gross NPAs on an absolute basis of the last 2 quarters have stood very steady. The restructured pipeline was much lower than what we had anticipated. And clearly, even going by the management guidelines, the restructured pipeline looks pretty decent considering its asset size. Again, I think if you look at the probable growth in terms of NI and the credit growth, I think the entire banking industry should see decent credit growth coming forward in the next few quarters. And clearly in terms of valuations, again, I think at 1.5 times price to book, I think it is reasonably priced compared to the private sector counterpart. So good capital adequacy ratios, decent CASA ratios, expected to grow well, and asset quality holding up. I think all these parameters are holding up for SBI. The only caveat probably might be that in the December 2nd policy, if RBI does not do a rate cut, the banking stocks might correct. So the investor is better off, I think, accumulating the stock at the current level, and again, I think chipping in on every decline that she can probably have. But again, our long-term view on the stock remains very positive, and we are very, very bullish on SBI from the PSU space.
All right, and Kunal, if someone wanted to enter SBI now, would this be the right level, or would you advise waiting for a dip?
Well, I think Sumera now is as good a time as any to get into SBI. It's got a great trajectory. The stock has outperformed, and it's actually caught up with the rest of the banking pack. And I think there are a lot of short positions built into the stock at the current level. So given that tomorrow is the F&O expiry for the current series, I expect for a short covering rally to happen, I think, tomorrow or today. So if you look at the overall structure, I think the stock can very easily get to 325, 330 levels in the current move. One should definitely go long, but be mindful of stop loss, and I think a good place to put a stop loss would be in the region of 303.
Okay, Priya, that's the advice for you. Now is as good a time to enter SBI as any. Long-term prospects of the bank also look good. You could see a bump up all the way to that 320, 325 mark, but be mindful of that 303 level. You want to place a stop loss there. Up next, we have Savita Jain, who calls in from Jaipur with a query on IFCI. Hi, Savita. आपका क्या सवाल है सविता, बताइए।
हाँ, IFCI के लिए
बताइए।
मेरे पास 1500 है IFCI 40 ग्रेड पे।
ठीक है,
तो अब आगे क्या करना चाहिए मुझे?
आप लॉन्ग टर्म इन्वेस्टर है या आपने ट्रेडिंग के नजरिए से खरीदा था?
नहीं, ट्रेडिंग के नजरिए से लिया।
Okay, Kunal, we have a trader who unfortunately had to become, partially an investor, but she wants to know if she should exit or remain invested. Do you see the stock going back to levels above 40?
This has been a serial underperformer, Sumera, and even when we've seen big rallies in the market, IFCI has very rarely participated. So I think if you were to invest in an NBFC, I think there are better plays available. One could look at the housing finance companies that have done really well in the current move. So a stock like Diwan Housing Finance or LIC or GIC Housing Finance, I think would fit the bill perfectly. So my sense would be that it's best if you exit out of IFCI and move on to something better.
Our next caller is Mr. A.K. Sinha. He calls us from Bihar. Hi, Mr. Sinha.
Hi, madam.
Hi. पूछिए आपका सवाल।
हाँ, मैडम, मैंने एवरेज 360 रुपया 1200 रिलायंस कैपिटल 2 साल पहले लिया है। मेरा हॉरिजन करीब 2 साल और आगे का है।
ओके।
इसका प्रोस्पेक्ट जानना चाहते हैं और एक नेल्को पर क्वेश्चन अगर मिल सके तो NELCO।
नेल्को, अच्छा पहले हम इसके बारे में पूछ लेते हैं रिलायंस कैपिटल के। ओके। Kunal, would you recommend that he stays invested in Reliance Capital if he has a longer time horizon?
Well, I think so, Rima. If you look at the overall chart structure, it isn't all that bad. The stock has made a base for itself. We've seen big volume happening recently. So I think one should stay put for at least the current move. And in the current swing, I think the stock can get to 540, 535 levels. And that could be a near-term target. With that as your target, I think you should stay invested. But remember to put a stop loss again, and I think 475 should be the place to put a stop loss.
Mayuresh, you analyzed the news that came in earlier on of Nippon Life hiking their stake in REL Cap asset management to 49%. What do you make of it, and does it now make a case for a much longer time horizon investment in the stock?
Afternoon, Sumera. Yes, I believe so. I think though officially we do not cover this stock, I think individually as I track it, the infusion would be value accretive for Reliance. And clearly, I think if you see the numbers that have just gone by, the profit figure was quite impressive at 217 crores. The top line grew at around, very impressively as well at around 2200 odd crores as well. So if you look at the AUM base as well for Reliance Capital at around 44,500 odd crores, I think it is looking decently poised for good growth going forward. So I think the equity capital market contribution in terms of AUM, the life insurance business, everything should probably gel together over the next 2 to 3 years as the economic recovery probably takes place and more money probably comes through. So yes, I think the investor probably can hold on. He's bought the stock at a very good price. So my take is that probably hold on to the stock, and since he's got a 2-year horizon, he should stay put in Reliance Capital.
Okay, stay invested in Reliance Capital. By any chance, would either the two gentlemen track Nelco? Kunal?
Well, sure. If you look at Nelco, Rima, I think the stock has had a big run already, and we've seen the stock getting from about 82 levels to almost 104, 105 levels in a very less amount of time. I think the stock is beginning to consolidate, and my sense would be that you'd be better off if you take profits in case you've got any and move on to something qualitatively better. A good switch, I think, can be Voltas, which has got a much better chart trajectory than Nelco does. So I think at these levels, one would be better off exiting Nelco and getting into something like a Voltas or a Crompton Greaves.
Okay, Mr. Sinha, आपके लिए राय यही है कि जो Reliance Capital में आपका इन्वेस्टमेंट है और जो आपका निवेश है वहाँ उसमें आप बने रहें फिलहाल, और जो नार्को में आपका निवेश है उसको आप एग्जिट कर जाएं, वहाँ पे प्रॉफिट बुकिंग कर लें, और वोल्टास या क्रॉम्पटन ग्रीव्स जैसा एक स्टॉक है उसमें आप अपनी पोजीशन अब बना सकते हैं. Next, we have a caller who wants to talk about ITC. S. Raman has called in from Chennai. Hi, Mr. Raman.
Yes.
Hi, what's your question?
I'm holding a 50 number ITC.
Okay.
I bought it at 343. Shall you hold it or dispose it now?
Have you bought it recently, and are you willing to hold on for the longer term?
Whether the price will go up, what about the shares prospects,
No, how many years can you hold on to the stock for? Are you in need of funds at the moment?
I don't need the fund, but whether it will go much higher, wait.
Okay, Mayuresh, this morning, almost all brokerages have reiterated their stance on ITC that, they don't see much impact of this recent development that there could be a ban on the sale of loose cigarettes. But even then, there's still an overhang of perhaps legislative changes on this stock. Should someone remain invested for the long term, a retail investor?
Oh yes, one can, and probably I think this news was more or less factored in, so I think you saw the sudden cut in the price once it got announced, but I think the overhang on the stock is probably done and dusted, specifically with the loose cigarette sale taking place. Clearly, I think our take is that in spite of this ban, I think ITC will probably come out with smaller packs, and in that sense itself, I think the demand in elasticity should probably continue at least for the cigarette business. There might be a short to medium term impact in terms of volumes and probably the sales trajectory, but overall in the long run, probably everything should get smoothened out. I think the sales revenues, the earnings CAGR on the cigarette business should continue as it was. And clearly, I think the other businesses are supportive for ITC. So the other FMCG business, the paperboard business, have been holding up pretty well. And once you see an uptick in the economy, even the hotels business utilization levels will go up. Purely in terms of valuations, again at 24 times forward, I think it is one of the best placed stocks in the FMCG universe. So I think the investor should probably hold on to the stock, keep a time horizon of 2 years. I think we still remain optimistic on this stock.
And in 2 years, what could be the potential target price in ITC, Mayuresh?
We're looking at a target price of 410, 420 in that range.
Okay, and Kunal, what would your recommendation be on ITC? So while Mr. Raman is making money, the profit margin is not too much. The current market price is just about 20 rupees higher than where from his buy price. What would be the markers for you on ITC and your recommendation?
Well, I would concur with the view that the overall trend for ITC will remain positive. It's an under-owned stock. Not too many retail investors have got positions here. And I expect for the stock to get to 380 level. There is a bit of resistance around those levels. But if ITC is able to cross that, then I think 420 is also possible on ITC. So my overall sense is that one should stay put in ITC. And if you were to put a stop loss, I think 345, 350 can be a region where one could put a stop loss. But I expect for the stock to get to 380 at least in the near term.
Syed Kadri has called in from Hyderabad. Hi, Mr. Kadri.
Yes.
Hi, good afternoon. What's your question? You want to talk about Lanco Infra?
Yes.
Tell us.
I purchased the shares for 15,000 at the rate of 7.93.
Okay.
So how much time it will take? And I can update it. Average, I can make average or exit.
Oh, I don't know if that's going to be advisable at all. Mayuresh, he's making quite a severe loss actually on Lanco. And I don't know, I mean, would you even advise averaging or would you just advise exiting and looking for better opportunities elsewhere?
Yes, I think exiting and looking at better opportunities would be the right strategy. I think the kind of debt that Lanco probably has on its book does not augur well for its cash flows, and that's very evident from the annual report that you've just seen. I think losses of 2,200 odd crores, sales of 10,700 crores. That does not augur well for cash flows. I think the cash flows in terms of improvement in return ratios, both ROEs and ROCs, look very difficult. I think unless the asset sales probably start happening and the deleveraging starts coming off, I think debt of around 34,500 crores on the balance sheet will ensure that the interest and finance costs stay high. So I think it has to keep on deleveraging its balance sheet to ensure that the cash flows start improving, but that does not seem likely to happen so soon. So my suggestion would be to probably exit the stock on rallies. If it intends to stay in the same sector, I think Nagarjuna Construction is something that we've been liking. The company will post good set of numbers with the kind of rights issue that it has got. The debt should come down, and that should have an incremental impact on the EPS and the EBITDA margins of the company. So I think one can look at Nagarjuna Construction on declines.
And what would your target price be on NCC?
It's close to 90 rupees Prima with a 15-month time price.
Well, not bad. That's a near 50% upside in NCC if you look to switch. But Kunal, since our viewer has shares of Lanco Infratech, your thoughts on the stock?
Well, I'm not bullish on this stock, Rima. The stock has been an underperformer throughout, and if you remember, if you look at its all-time high, the stock is trading at a fraction of its lifetime high, whereas the market, we find, is making a new high every day. So it's definitely an underperformer, not a stock that you should stay with. And I think rather than waiting for a rally, I think you should exit even now and move on to something better. A similar pick, I think, can be switch can be to GMR Infra. That stock also is beaten out of shape. But if you look at its structure, I think it's got a much better prospect. So it's a much better idea to switch to GMR Infra if you're going to hold on to Lanco.
All right, Mr. Kadri, that's the advice for you. There are two recommendations coming in from my experts, but the verdict is that you need to switch out of this stock. You could look at an NCC or you could look at an GMR Infra. But we also have another query that has been sent on GMR Infra. Narendra Kumar writes to us from Bangalore. He says he has 5,000 shares of GMR Infra, which he has bought at the rate of 22.95 and wants to know whether he should hold or sell. Kunal, since you just recommended GMR Infra, let me come to you first on this query. Should he just remain invested?
Well, I would think so, Sumera. It's got a great trajectory. It's consolidated recently, and I think the stock can very easily get to 25 levels, and in percentage terms, that's a very substantial jump. So I think definitely one could look to hold on to your positions. In case you can get some money, I think this is a time to actually average your positions, hold on to the stock, and it might get to some movement very quickly.